The one thing that I did want to do before we wrap up is touch on like what appears to be a double standard between the royal woman and the royal man, where if a man was to marry, a quote unquote commoner, that he wouldn't have to, give up his royalty status, right? The reason why is because of his seed. That's the reason why. Like
Mm-hmm.
any child that he has is still of his lineage. It doesn't matter what woman is carrying or bearing that child, it's still his child. It's a little bit different because when a woman marries a man that isn't royalty and he's a quote unquote commoner, it's his legacy that they are now leaving. You are no longer leaving a royal legacy. Like that bloodline is now cut off. Like because you are no longer married to somebody that is also in a royal status. So I just wanted to point that out because sometimes people be like, yo, it's a double standard. Yo, why can the prince do it, but the princess can't? It's because his lineage is not going to be broken, regardless of what woman he marries.
Japan's Princess Mako, or I don't know how to pronounce her name, but it's Mako, marries her commoner boyfriend. So he's not royalty or royal lineage at all, losing her royal status. Um, and the boyfriend says, "We only get one life, and I want us to spend it with the one we love." And she says, for me, he is irreplaceable. Marriage was necessary, a necessary choice for us. And so she married her college sweetheart, so they go way back. And he works as a lawyer in the United States. Under Japanese law, female imperial family members forfeit their status upon marriage to a commoner or non-royal person, although male members don't have that same rule. So there's already a double standard. And so they nicknamed the couple, Japan's Harry and Meghan, as the couple are expected to move to New York. So yeah, that's pretty much the story. So it talks about, like, as Jay was saying, the sacrifices that we make for marriage. Like, these were two not high school, but college sweethearts. He was from a different side of the tracks than she was, and so it's like almost like Lady and the Tramp kind of thing. Like, she's literally a princess. She's like a whole princess right now in an Asian country, but not anymore because she married a guy who isn't a prince. So I'm like, how? I didn't even know they had a monarchy or imperialism in Japan. I'm not keen on Asian history like that, but it just made me think about, like, even to what they were saying in the post about Harry and Meghan, and how Harry chose to step down from his royal title, and Meghan as well, and they chose a better life for themselves because he had the interview with Oprah. They saw all the stuff that was going on in the royal palace. They was like, yo, we're gonna have to just make the sacrifice for our marriage. And that's what it sounds like for the Japanese couple as well. So what are y'all thoughts about this topic?
What do you think, Asia?
I think that they chose themselves. And I think it's interesting. You said the sacrifices people will make to get married. I think that if two people love each other, they got to do what they got to do. And sometimes you got to break tradition to be happy.
Ooh,
And that
that's a
can
word.
be in in anything. And sometimes, honestly, if you do break tradition, it can make you unhappy. Like, I think it can go both ways. But in this
Mhm.
particular context, I don't know if she was unhappy in her family. Like, that didn't mean anything to her. It could have meant something to her grandparents, just like the family and generations before her. But to her, she just like, I want to marry the man I love, and I'm willing to give up all of this to do this. So I'm with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Tanisha says she loves the story. Ebony says
Aw.
that's true love.
Yes,
So
that's real.
I guess I will be devil's advocate.
Of
Come on,
course.
Jay. That's why
No,
we're here.
so
Let's get
so
into
so the
it.
first thing the first thing that stood out to me was when she said he's irreplaceable. Is any person ever really irreplaceable though?
Yeah.
Mm, we about to touch maybe into the soulmate conversation, and, like, is there such thing as one? Because it's like there are people in your life that are there for a season. Like, what if you do marry someone
Yep.
who you feel is your soulmate, and then they pass
Mhm.
on early, or
Right.
before you thought he would or she would? Then
Right.
what? Like, are you gonna marry again? Are they just gonna be like that second person? They're gonna be the Aunt Viv part two when you really wanted Aunt Viv one? Like,
The first one is the best one.
exactly. Exactly. Shout out to both, but we already know. Like,
Right.
it makes you think about that. That was
Yeah.
interesting, Jay.
I'll be honest. I feel like, how do I say this? She gave up a lot. She gave up a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
we know that just because you marry somebody doesn't mean that you're going to be with them forever. And we're talking about something that you can't get back. Like, you can't your royal status is revoked. Like, you just decided that, hey, I'm choosing this guy over your family lineage. I don't know the details, right? Like you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
about, how everything works within that royal family, but I hope that she weighed the cost. That's all I'm gonna say. Like the Bible
That's
tells
true.
us, right? Weigh the cost. Like, make sure you have planned it out to make sure that if any situation turns out in a way that you didn't expect it to, you know how to navigate those waters and do it in a way where you're not going to be looking back regretting it and ultimately not be able to get something back. Because to me, what's irreplaceable in this equation is her royal status. That's irreplaceable. That's something that she can't get back. She can find another man if she, God forbid that one dies, God forbid they get a divorce or their relationship ends.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say, like, he's not irreplaceable. Him as an individual, yeah, that unique man, the things that he may bring that nobody else can, how their souls, their spirit meet, I don't argue that at all. But as far as being a man, being a husband, being a provider, all of those roles, there are definitely other men that could fill that role. But when you consider your royalty, and I mean, as black women, y'all, I mean, black women, like, we're queens, we're royalty, but like, not literally though, oftentimes. If
I'm
you were
weak.
literally a princess, literally a queen, like, are you gonna be like, nah, I'm good? Even the woman in Coming to America hopping on one foot was doing it for another prince.
She sure
She wasn't
was.
hopping around for no commoner, right? And wolfing like dogs.
I think that's the good point that you made. And now that, it's deep. I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, I kind of get your perspective because
Mhm.
if I was in that situation, I would have probably it would have been tough because like you said, once it's gone, it's gone. And I almost, and I hate to do this, question the man because I wonder if he should have not allowed her to do it. Maybe he saw, and I don't know, maybe we just, kind of play around with this, but maybe it's one of those things like I love you enough to not even allow you to do this. Like we love each other, but this is a decision that you're not going to be able to get back. So maybe you need more time. So maybe they did, I don't know how old they are. I don't know if it's even in
Right.
the
I don't
article, but it's
know.
just maybe he could have, maybe him as a man had to make that tough decision because I struggle with if he would have did that.
Mhm.
If it was him,
Right.
it's easy to tell somebody to give something up if you ain't the one that got to give it up.
That part.
So,
Facts.
so that's one of those. Now I'm kind of thinking like, love me, maybe, and I don't know, maybe he could have loved her enough to not allow her to make a generational
Wow.
decision like that. So, something
Mm-hmm.
that could impact generations and, her potential daughter who will not be royalty. And like it stops right there. So it's just, you know,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Got to
And I
factor in
think,
the
again,
legacy
back to
piece.
April Mason. Like, is she amplifying this man or is she trying to build this man?
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what the details are and how that works because I just saw like the remake of Cinderella on Amazon. There's always a remake of Cinderella. But in that situation, you had two siblings that were prince and princess. And
Mhm.
so the prince decided to marry Cinderella, and the sister went on to become the queen. So who knows, like maybe she didn't have a desire to be in the monarchy anymore. Maybe she didn't have a desire to be queen one day. Maybe she had other brothers and sisters that were in line to be take over the throne. Because
Mhm.
let's be clear, um, Prince William and Harry's daddy Charles, he is not even king yet because Queen Elizabeth is still queen.
Right.
So there's an order to things, and so until Harry had he basically didn't have a chance.
Mhm.
So he didn't lose that much in terms of
That's
the
true.
royalty part and be able to rule over things. But I think it's the status, it's the everything that comes with that. I hope they wouldn't disown her as a family member.
Mhm.
And I think that if they have a plan the Japanese couple has a plan to come to the U.S., they can probably take a few notes from Harry and Meghan, because they are thriving. They are taking over. They're doing media things. They're working in production. They're doing a whole bunch of projects that we'll see in the near future, because they decided to pave their own way, create their own pathway to building legacy, instead of relying on a tradition that may not have benefited them in their purpose. It's so hard when, even if it's a negative thing that you're coming out of, like if you grew up in a family that had certain dysfunctions and you're trying to break the cycle, it's difficult to leave that tradition, because those people in your family who don't get it, they're going to be like, why are you trying to be different than us? You think you're better than us and stuff like that. You're trying to like get out of this tradition and this title that you have received because you are connected to this family. But sometimes God calls you out of something to create something else, something that's more in line with what he's trying to do. So it could go either way, but I wouldn't rule it out completely that maybe they didn't think this through. They probably got inspired at some point by Harry and Meghan's story, but who knows? Who really knows? Yeah.
Like I said, counting the cost is key. Tanisha was saying, yes, some people are irreplaceable. She knows people who are still grieving deceased spouses and cannot move on with their lives. And that's true. That's true. I don't refute that at all. I feel like there are some people who definitely leave a lasting impression in our lives, and that's undeniable. Undeniable. The one thing that I did want to do before we wrap up is touch on like what appears to be a double standard between the royal woman and the royal man, where if a man was to marry, a quote unquote commoner, that he wouldn't have to, give up his royalty status, right? The reason why is because of his seed. That's the reason why. Like any child that he has is still of his lineage. It doesn't matter what woman is carrying or bearing that child, it's still his child. It's a little bit different because when a woman marries a man that isn't royalty and he's a quote unquote commoner, it's his legacy that they are now leaving. You are no longer leaving a royal legacy. Like that bloodline is now cut off, like because you are no longer married to somebody that is also in a royal status. So I just wanted to point that out, because sometimes people are like, yo, it's a double standard. Yo, why can the prince do it, but the princess can't? It's because his lineage is not going to be broken, regardless of what woman he marries. So I just wanted to put that out there just so people would understand why that is, why the man wouldn't necessarily have to give up those rights.
Thank you for sharing that. That definitely adds more context to the situation.
Yeah.